Is there something that is not possible that you are thinking, oh, I wish this was possible?
When people think virtual, they think of stepping into a whole alternate reality, a virtual reality. I think where, on a personal level, I think the real next stage in our technological evolution of how we utilize tech is going to be the blending of the physical and the digital. I'm walking around in the world and I can engage with virtual and physical at the same time. I think that's the next thing. I'm a gaming strategy director here at Geek. GEEIQ, people get the name wrong all the time. We are simply a data enterprise platform for any brand and media owner wanting to understand more about the virtual ecosystem. We work with the likes of Roblox, Fortnite, Minecraft, any of these platforms in a gaming and virtual space, and create strategies off the back of that.
Hi, Craig. Welcome to Not Just Ads. And to give some background, I've seen you a few weeks ago at the Future of Media, and you had a fantastic presentation. So after the presentation, I literally kidnapped you, and here we are. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Alessandro. It's a really good pleasure to be here. Really excited to talk about some really cool topics today.
Let's start from the very basic.
Well, virtual worlds are a bit of a sort of a new terminology for what people typically think of as the metaverse. Now, the metaverse has gone through a bit of a few cycles in terms of understanding what it actually is. Typically, in the earlier days, a few years ago, the metaverse was anything that was perceived to be virtual, right? And then there was the metaverse hype wave that sort of concluded a few years ago, in which it was almost concluded by the media that the metaverse is now dead. We had Meta themselves investing heavily into this, and people expected this to be a huge advancement in technology overnight, and all of a sudden the hype cycle ended. Now, metaverses didn't die off. The technology is still here, it's still advancing, and it's just going by a bit more of a different name these days, and that's what we consider to be virtual worlds. Now, virtual worlds by definition are 3D digital environments, typically thought of as gaming environments. Lots of virtual worlds these days are just games. Thinking about Roblox being the biggest platform out there of thousands of interconnected experiences or virtual worlds. These are places people can go inside, create avatars, have a sense of digital identity, and they are places for creation, whether you are a user, a developer, a brand, a media owner. They are for anyone to go inside and create whatever they want, to enjoy games, to experience new things, to interact with the digital, essentially. So, Ready Player One, you may have seen that film. It was a huge blockbuster film quite a few years ago. That was what people thought of as the metaverse, but these are just virtual worlds, essentially.
And you named Roblox. There is Fortnite. Those are the two main platforms. And I don't want to drag the conversation onto, let's say, traditional media, but is there the risk of a monopoly in the space?
Well, it's interesting. So Fortnite and Roblox certainly are the bigger two. And Fortnite, people don't typically think of as a metaverse virtual world, because it was born out of a typical AAA video game. However, we're seeing a bit of a shift in Fortnite towards a more content creator platform. You have people and developers being able to create new maps, and it's moving towards this sort of Roblox style of platform in which people can create. And I think, we call these UGC platforms, user-generated content platforms, and that is typically what we see as, at the moment, the backbone of a virtual world. It's creation, essentially. They are the bigger two, but actually Minecraft is also enormous, biggest selling video game of all time. That can technically be classed as a virtual world as well. We have platforms like Zepeto, which is really big out in the east of Asia. And then we also have other sort of more decentralized platforms born on the blockchain, like Sandbox, Decentraland, etc. So there is a whole host of virtual world platforms out there. So to go to your question around, is this a potential monopoly? Right now, there are clear leaders in terms of audience size, but because it's really developing and it's quite a new-ish advancement in terms of content creation, in terms of brands using this as a way to reach audiences, as a way for media owners to create new audiences. It's too soon to say if there's a monopoly. Roblox certainly don't have it all. They have an amazing audience, an amazing platform when it comes to creation, but there are things that Roblox does very well, and there are things that the other platforms do very well as well. So at the moment, there isn't a clear winner when it comes to hitting the objectives of both fun, branding objectives, creating audience. There's many different ways to kind of many benefits and pros and cons to each of these platforms, and the technology and the advancements in these platforms is evolving rapidly every single week, month, day, year. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see in 1 year to 5 years to 10 years what the new platforms are going to be. But what's clear to see is the advancements in the space means that these won't be the last platforms that really focus on virtual world creation. There's going to be new ones. There's going to be these platforms. The race to capture the largest audience is only just beginning.
How did we evolve from traditional media, if we want, onto virtual worlds?
Well, I mean,
It's
first
a
of
big
all,
story. It's a
it's a
big story, I
huge
guess.
question. It's a huge question. I mean, as I said, these virtual environments, they have a typical landing in gaming, right? Most people will think of virtual environments or virtual worlds as games, and they typically are gaming environments. They, for these environments to be engaging, they have to have that fun element of it. But so it's important to sort of first think about gaming as a whole and how the evolution of gaming in itself. So typically, what people might think as a gamer or games, they are these sort of hardcore titles that people spend all day in their rooms being locked in, and they're quite solitary. Gaming that was the case decades ago, but that's no longer the case. Gaming has become much more social. It's around connecting with other people. It's around expressing myself in these environments digitally. And that's why we see this evolution of social communication, really. And that's what these platforms are. These UGC platforms, these user-generated content platforms, virtual worlds, they are an evolution of social media almost. And that's actually how brands have started to use these platforms as well as a form of communication. So, we think back to the 80s, where we have TV becoming big and TV adverts, and we have radio, print. Those were the traditional formats of media communication, right? If I'm a brand or a media owner, and I want to just have a certain message reach my consumers, those are the environments that I'm going to be utilizing to distribute that communication. Then we had an advancement about 2 decades ago. We had the rise of social media, right? And everyone remembers this as a skeptical period at first. People thinking, is this really going to be where I spend all my media dollars? That was the big question for brands. And we saw it was the first movers that really sort of understood these platforms, and they were able to create their own accounts. They were able to start their own communication strategy on social media environments. And that's become, a must-have for any brand's media plan these days. Social media has an enormous stake of that budget. So that's one evolution. We go from traditional media to social media. Yes, traditional media is still important, and yes, social media is important. But now, in the 2020s, we are seeing the next stage of the evolution. And that is an evolution of social communication from a user perspective. Users are now, does any Gen Z use Facebook anymore? No. If you look at Facebook's demographics, they are incredibly older. Instagram is the millennial platform. TikTok is the Gen Z platform for social content. And you notice that there's a difference in these platforms and how content is distributed, but the other platforms that Gen Z are using are virtual environments. These are ways that people can go in, they can express themselves however they want, and they can interact, communicate, socialize with their friends. They're going into these platforms not just to play games, but also to socialize. Now that's the user perspective, but then we also have the brand's perspective as well, and the media owner's perspective. These are ways in which brands can also, and media owners can also communicate new ways to their consumers. They can create engaging worlds in which they're not just selling an ad, selling a product to their consumers through 2D environments. These are 3D worlds in which brands can communicate any messaging they want with a meaningful value exchange. So that's the evolution we've seen over the last 4 decades, from traditional to social to virtual.
And it sounds like the three categories of owned, earned, and paid media still apply to virtual worlds, right?
Well, they certainly apply to gaming as a whole, right? So it's a really interesting thing to think about when it comes to gaming, virtual worlds. How as a media person do I really sort of wrap my head around utilizing this whole avenue of media tech, right? We have owned, paid, earned, as you touched on there. Those are the 3 pillars of any media marketing mix. Owned is all around owning the content that I distribute to my audience. Now, if you look at, just use the examples we walked through then, owned would be I own my Facebook page, I own my Instagram page, I own my TikTok page, and I can create content that's distributed on my own channels. It's exactly the same concept for virtual worlds. Owned is all about I create my environment. I could go onto Roblox and create an entire world that is entirely my brand, my media platform. We're seeing typical media owners go onto these platforms and create worlds as a way to create a new audience, reach a new audience, and also create community. So that's where virtual worlds really come in strong, is for owned media. It's creating your own audience, but there's also gaming touching on paid and earned. Earned media is all about, as we know, it's all about people and the community in which you're reaching, creating content about the messaging or the content that you're producing. It is content creation at the end of the day. Earned media, if I put a post up on Instagram and it goes viral and people start sharing and creating their own content off the back of it, that is earned media. That's my brand, that's my platform, getting free coverage, right? When it comes to gaming, earned media is all about tapping into culture. Gaming has evolved, as I said, from what it used to be. Gaming does not just sit in its own lane anymore. Gaming is so popular, 3.2 billion people around the world are gamers. They are people engaging with games, gaming content. That is nearly half the world's population in some way engages in gaming. Now, that is an enormous audience, and it just goes to show the span and the expanse of gaming as a whole. Now, gaming does not just sit in its own entertainment vertical. We have gaming spanning across music. We have companies like Riot Games creating music videos and music and partnering with A-list artists. We have Ariana Grande, Travis Scott going into Fortnite. We have going into sport. So we have, of course, esports being a whole new avenue of sport. We have the Olympic Games considering to have esports as a new chapter of the Olympic Games altogether. Esports being recognized as a category in sport these days. We have gaming crossing into film, TV. Arcane is winning Emmy awards. We have gaming reaching into fashion as well. We have traditional gaming brands and platforms creating apparel and branching out and really succeeding across all of these different verticals of culture. And that's what we see. Gaming is culture these days. It's no longer this solitary thing. It really spans across all of those different types. So going back to earned, how can a brand, a media owner really utilize gaming as a way to create earned media? You need to tap in to these key cultural moments. It's understanding what are the key releases, what are the key things that people are really on the hype train about. And it's partnering with these games, partnering with these experiences, partnering with the culture that people are interested in. Just like you'll be taking note of TikTok trends, and for creating a TikTok strategy, you need to be having a gaming strategy to be able to really reach an audience that is tremendously loyal and tremendously passionate about the content that they are consuming. Now, if you partner with those really loyal IPs, these loyal gaming IPs, you can unlock an audience that will gladly consume your content, produce more content off the back of that as well. So that's what we talk about when we think about earned media in gaming.
And I like this concept. I think it's a universal concept, even in traditional media, the importance of being audience centric, understanding the needs, the expectation of the audience, and building an environment that is actually favoring this type of interaction.
Paid media. Now, one thing I didn't mention in earned is when it comes to content creation, of course, there's it sits between paid and earned, depending on who you speak to and depending on the media teams that you're speaking with, is influencers. Now, influencers, of course, sometimes sit with paid, sometimes sit with earned. It depends on your marketing plan. Now, this is all around content creation, and these influencers in the gaming world are traditionally, they have, again, similar to gaming IPs, they have very loyal audiences. So also partnering with gaming influencers is a way to really unlock those loyal audiences as well. So that's one aspect of paid, potentially earned. But the more traditional aspect of paid media in gaming is what we typically think of as paid media. It's, I am buying already existing space in a digital environment. Now, if we think about paid media in social, it's buying a video ad on Facebook, it's buying a billboard on Reddit, it's buying media space in the digital ecosystem. That's essentially what paid media is when it comes to digital paid media. Gaming paid media is almost identical. The difference is where the ad is actually being placed. So gaming paid media is incredibly geared towards mobile. Traditionally, we have the majority of game paid media is across mobile games, and that is I buy a space inside that game to place my ad. Very simple, very similar to the digital concept there as well. It could be billboard ads at the bottom. It could be an immersive video that I'm inside a game and I'm walking around and I see a video ad or a billboard inside that game itself. It could be a rewarded video. Now, rewarded video is one of the most engaging and successful types of gaming paid media, because what happens there is we call it a meaningful value exchange. It's, I'll watch your video ad in exchange for a reward, and that reward is free of charge for games, because it could be a boost, it could be an upgrade, it could be a cosmetic, it could be something that I am given inside that game, and that leads to tremendous stats like 100% video completion rate, because people want to watch, they want to finish that ad, they want to engage with that piece of content that you're producing, so that they have that reward as a return. Now, we also see paid media being one of the fastest growing aspects of virtual environments. This is why we have the crossover with owned and paid here as well. So we have paid ads, paid media also being available across Roblox. I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be coming to the other virtual platforms as well. But these are immersive paid ads. So this is, imagine you're walking around inside a completely digital world, and then you're seeing a billboard for Coca-Cola there, or I go up to what we call them portals. They are, doorways inside these virtual worlds, and I can see a video about where I'm about to go to, and I get transported there as well. So these ways of paid advertising inside virtual worlds are very up and coming. They are very immersive, and they're ways that you can combine your own strategy with a paid strategy as well. It's a way to amplify your existing experiences. So if you're an owned platform, if you're a media owner and you're wanting to really create a own strategy for yourself and you're wanting to enter these virtual environments, you absolutely need a paid media strategy to go along with that, because you need to be able to amplify your existing experiences, your existing activations, and a great way to do that is through paid media.
What is the status of the delivery of the actual ad within virtual worlds and gaming?
Let's start with the obstacles. So when it comes to comparing the rest of traditional or digital compared to the virtual and gaming, I think the biggest obstacle that most people face is the fragmentation of the gaming market, of the virtual market. There are so many options, and because it's an entirely new space, it can be quite daunting for people to really understand how they can effectively engage. So thinking about paid media, for example, if I want to place an ad in a digital environment, and by the digital environment I mean anywhere on the web, I can go to Google and I can go onto Google Ads Manager and I can simply buy programmatically. Now, you can do that with a lot of games as well. You can buy those on Google. However, it's not all there. So if I want to reach, there's not one way yet to be able to reach every gaming audience there is. So it's all about understanding where those core opportunities, where those key games, IPs, audiences are that you want to target, and is understanding how to reach them. So it could mean going direct to the publishers of those games. It could mean going to direct to Roblox and understanding which experiences I want to be activating inside of, or do I create my own experience? It could be going to a big ad agency or ad network for mobile games to programmatically distribute ads across 50 different titles. So there's many ways to buy gaming media, whether it's virtual, paid, or have an earned strategy. There's many ways to do it. In terms of the benefits you get, they're very similar to that of traditional digital. The difference is these are all high attention environments. Now that's the key thing, really. That's the main differentiation when it comes to why should I do gaming or virtual versus my traditional or rest of digital media. It's attention. We see people spending far longer engaging with content inside of gaming and virtual environments than we do with the likes of traditional. Now, an ad on social media will get between 1 to 3 seconds. Branded environments inside of Roblox can achieve over 10 minutes of engagement. Now, 3
I
seconds,
remember.
10
I
minutes.
rem I
It's
remember you
incredible.
showing. It was mind-blowing, the
Yeah.
difference in engagement between virtual worlds, social media, and traditional media.
Exactly. And the way that they're actually engaging, they're not just scrolling, seeing, scrolling ahead and flicking away. That's people's reaction to seeing, content on my phone, right? If I can just scroll past it, it's the doom scrolling effect. I barely engage with the content. I want more, more, more. But inside these virtual environments, people are stopping to smell the flowers, as it were. They're really engaging with the world around them. And it leads to these really high engagement times. Now, that's how we measure attention really in virtual environments. When it comes to paid media, attention can simply be measured by how long people are engaging with branded content, media content, and we're seeing people have activations inside of gaming paid media with tremendous levels of click through, completions, engagements, because we have that rewarded and meaningful value exchange effect, and people are really immersed in the content. They're really passionate about the content they're consuming. So there are many ways to have that sort of meaningful value exchange with consumers. So it's all around attention. If I think why gaming, it's time, attention, new eyeballs. Those are the 3 key pillars of why any media owner or brand should be interested in incorporating gaming into their strategy.
A lot of traditional media owners will ask themselves, okay, how can we tap into this opportunity? Obviously, you mentioned the age barrier, but many traditional media owners have also very young audiences, and I'm wondering, it's not necessarily just about gaming.
Of course. Well, first of all, it's assessing what is my audience, what is my desired audience that I want to achieve. That's the first step. And there'll be a whole host of virtual environment and platforms that you want to consider. let's say I want to create a virtual world inside of Roblox, just for simplicity's sake. There are many different types of experiences that you could create to access a particular demographic. There are certain themes or genres of experiences that resonate with a more male or female audience. There are certain genres of experiences that resonate with a more older or younger audience. So there's ways to create the content that your desired demographic wants to consume. So that's the sort of first thing that I would consider is really like, what is my objective here? Is my objective simply just for mass awareness? I just want to create a virtual strategy that really amplifies my offline media platform. It could be my blog, it could be my TV show, whatever it may be, because that's what we see. We see entertainment IPs of all manners. We see the biggest media owners in the world creating virtual strategies, and they're all doing it in different ways. There's not one way to create a virtual strategy. So it really does depend on your objective and your ambition and objective and KPIs that you want to achieve. So if you're wanting to do something for mass awareness, it may be great to actually just integrate, is what we call them. We call them integrations inside already existing virtual environments inside of Roblox, because you're already leveraging an existing audience. You're reaching mass eyeballs, and you can create a fun, engaging game loop. So when people play your game, they experience your content. They are, associating that with your brand or your platform. That's one way to do it. But if you're also wanting to really create a new, unique community or audience of yourself, then potentially an owned experience is the way to go. Now, that is creating a world from scratch. Now, as I said, there's many different ways to go about this. My first advice would be to look at the data. So that's what we do here at Geek. We are a data platform, first of all. Now, data is the first thing that I would say to look at, because without understanding what demographics to target, what genres to pursue, then it's going to be very difficult to sort of form the rest of your strategy. Then it's working with a developer or a content creator on those platforms that really understands what resonates with particular audiences. Creating an own world from scratch can be quite difficult, can be quite daunting for some platforms and brands, but there are thousands of success stories of brands and media owners doing this effectively. So if engaging and creating your own audience from scratch is the objective, then potentially that's an owned experience there as well. Of course, paid media underpins all of this. With whatever you're doing, it's creating a 360 strategy. So when we say 360 strategy, that's I have my core activation. It could be integration, it could be an own world. You want to amplify that activation then with the likes of paid media, or also partnering with top content creators. These are influencers in the industry that can also amplify your activation towards the audiences you're trying to reach as well.
I always say that this podcast is basically me bringing online the conversations that I usually have over coffee. To close this episode, what are your thoughts about the future of virtual worlds?
My perspective on where this can go, or where habits are moving, let's say habits from users, habits from providers, now providers being brands, media owners. We're all becoming content creators in our own right. We're seeing that as I talked through that evolution at the start, we're seeing the evolution of, it was traditional owners of eyeballs and owners of medias. We're seeing that being decentralized through social media, and decentralized again through UGC virtual platforms. At the moment, we're having anyone can create content in these environments, and these are going to be the platforms in which people are used to receiving and really getting genuine, valued content creation from their desired audiences. So a way that I might want to go on these platforms and distribute certain messaging might be very similar to the way that a media owner or a brand also wants to use these platforms. I would say for anyone wanting to do this, my final bit of advice would be, don't treat it the same as your traditional media strategy. Gamers are very passionate, they're very loyal about the content they're consuming. They can smell they can smell false strategies from a mile off. Think native to the platform. What works? You cannot have the same approach to gaming in virtual worlds as you have to the rest of your strategy. You need to be engaging. You need to be native to the content that they're used to consuming. You need to be genuine, and you need to be authentic. So that's sort of the last bit of advice I would say to anyone wanting to create a virtual or gaming strategy there as well.
Thank you, Craig. Great tips, great insights, and see you soon in some virtual worlds, probably.
Hopefully, yes. I'll give you my username. You can come find me in the 3D world.